Your Excellency and ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for attending our presentation today, and it really is a great honour for me to be able to present here and really discuss the progress in the last 12 months since the last time this meeting was held, this conference was held, progress on the Kalahari Copper Belt in Botswana by Mod Resources and its Botswana operating company Shikudu Metals. So this is a real alliance in a sense between Australia and Botswana, and everything we've done with this company has been aimed with that objective to really build a solid Botswana managed operating company and with assistance and bringing the very best of technology that we can from Australia. That's our goal. And I guess I can't resist saying this, but there's been, before I leave this slide, there's been plenty of speculation about what happened to the photographer who took this wonderful photograph. and I have a theory it's probably the last photograph he ever took. We'll never know. Because we are a stock exchange listed company, I just have to point out that we are governed by certain regulations, including disclaimer statements and cautionary statements. And I guess just can't help making a little comment. In the last 5 years, what used to fit on one page now spills over into 2 pages. That's the way we operate. And I should also say this presentation is available at our booth. So I'm hoping that you may find the time to go there and meet some of our wonderful team. So firstly, part of the agenda, we want to just cover who is Mod, who are we, and who's Shikudu, and our joint venture partner, I should say, Metal Tiger, who's involved in this project with us. Last year, when we presented, it was all about our wonderful T3 Mateo discovery. Mateo in Setswana means the beginning, and it was a very exciting discovery made in March 2016. That project has rapidly moved into the feasibility stage, and we're targeting a decision to mine in end of March quarter next year, so only months away now. However, at the time that T3 was discovered, and exactly a year ago, we were not even aware of the significance of T3. We thought it was a one-off, and we got lucky in the first drill hole. However, since then, you'll see that the emphasis has shifted back to exploration, and the reason for that is that we discovered early on in this year that T3 deposit, and we'll come back to it, sits on a large regional dome. So you're going to hear the word dome many times in this presentation, but it's all about domes, and we're very focused on drilling domes. We talk about them relentlessly on site, on the drill, at the drill rig in our office. We probably dream about them as well, but domes and copper go very well together. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background about who Mod is and our in-country operating company, Shikudu. We're the largest licence holder and copper explorer in Botswana, and that's really evolved very rapidly over the last 2 years. We dominate the central Kalahari Copper Belt, and that extends from northeastern Botswana through the Namibian border. The discovery of the T3 deposit, it was the first target effectively drilled by our exploration manager at the time, Jacques van Rensburg, who I hope you'll meet at our booth as well. It was a wonderful discovery hole. It was something like 52 metres at 2% copper at shallow depth, and that was the first hole into the first target. And we did nothing else for 2 years except drill out T3, Mateo, and move that all the way through as fast as we could towards development, which is where we're headed with this, and work very closely with the government at how we could establish a real Botswana company that is going to manage and see this project through. So I'll come back to that towards the end. And here we are now in March 2019, not that far away. Less than 3 years from discovery, we expect a decision to mine on that project. So that's our startup project here. The breakthrough for Mod and Shikudu really has been airborne EM, helicopter airborne EM, and it's been fabulously successful in defining numerous domes, and I'll show you some examples of those very soon, which we think are very prospective for copper along this belt. So I'm going to use that word many times. I did warn you at the start. And the first dome outside of T3 that we started drilling only back in May. We had immediate success there with an intersection of 52 metres at 1.5% copper in the second hole at what we call the A4 dome. So this is 8 kilometres west of our T3 startup project. So to manage the scale of the project that we have here that's rapidly evolving in our thinking of the potential that could exist over a much wider area here. Part of that strategy, if you like, is to dual list this company MOD in London. We think London really understands Africa, it understands copper, and really Australian investors, to be honest, have been very slow getting on board the story. And so for that reason, we're very focused on getting this message out globally. And in the background of all this, we're working very, very hard to build strong government and community relationships. We are involved in a project in a district called Hunzi District. It's in the northwest of Botswana. It's never had a mine before. It's relied on agriculture. It's really looking for employment opportunities in that region. And in addition to that, there's a wonderfully skilled workforce in Botswana from other mining operations, particularly in the eastern part of the country. So we're tapping into that. It's a wonderful resource for us, and we're very focused on building a long-term presence in Botswana. The team here, who you will see at our booth, and apologies to one of our directors, Bronwyn Barnes, who I left off this slide, but she will certainly be very apparent at our booth there, hopefully, and throughout the conference. So all of these people here, you'll meet the team, and hopefully they can sort of run you through some of the details of the project and what we're trying to achieve. If I'll skip that slide, I think. If you look at the Southern African copper region here, there's really 3 copper belts. There's obviously the DRC Zambian copper belt. It's one of the world's great metal provinces. We all know that. It's been around a long time, and it's still delivering new discoveries right along that borderland, if you like, between Zambia and DRC. The part that we're focused on is the section of the Kalahari copper belt, the central part of that Kalahari copper belt. There is plenty of speculation and some solid geological evidence that the Kalahari copper belt that comes into Botswana and extends into Namibia is actually an extension of the Zambian DRC copper belt. The difference is being grade tends to be higher in the Zambian DRC copper belt. Also, there's a cobalt association. In Botswana, with copper, we see silver. We don't see cobalt. So they're the main differences there. However, what Botswana has is really quite a unique niche here. It has a niche grade-wise between 1% to 2%. All the deposits pretty much fall in that range, and they seem to be getting pretty large as well. What it also has, which again seems really out of the box, is that they produce a very high grade and high quality concentrate. So even though it's a landlocked country, we can produce comfortably in the range of 35, even up to 40% concentrate, which we can transport either westwards towards Walvis Bay in Namibia or eastwards to the other coast in the Indian Ocean. We have a very well-established in-country operator now, so all of our day-to-day activities are run by Botswana, highly skilled, wonderful team of people there, and I hope we meet some of them during the course of the conference. And the other one, of course, is Botswana is a very low country risk. Its support of stable government, I think, demonstrated over the last 55 years, a great place for us to operate in, and really it seems to be very attractive for foreign investment as well. To give you an idea of scale here, this is the copper belt at extending from east. The blue colour represents license holdings held by a company called Kuprick Canyon Capital, Comacao, and they've defined and predecessors over a 20-year period, mind you, around about 7 million tonnes in 7 major copper deposits in those blue areas there. All the rest of the colours, the pink and the reddy colours, are all either MOD 100% or MOD in a joint venture with Metal Tiger, but operated by Sekutu. So the land holding there that we currently hold around about 11,500 square kilometres. To date, we've focused specifically on the T3 discovery, which has really opened up our eyes to the potential here. and we've drilled out about 60 million tonnes of resource, which will be captured largely within a pit, but potentially with an underground mine as well. And a very major exploration campaign now underway, extending down a strike length of about 140 kilometres down the centre of this belt, which comprises soil anomalies, it comprises EM anomalies, other geophysical and structural targets there. We have dozens of drilling targets in front of us. We have a drilling fleet currently of 9 diamond rigs, 3, 4 RC rigs. We clearly need to uplift the scale of what we're doing here. And the success rate has been we've been very lucky with the way things have panned out here. The reason it's been previously undrilled is that it's largely covered by just a near-surface layer of calcrete. It's about 3 to 5 metres thick. It's throughout this region. It's covered by 1 metre or 2 of Kalahari sand. You run with this shallow layer of calcrete, then you hit rock, fresh rock, and it's very difficult for copper in the underlying sediments to present themselves on surface as soil anomalies. So most of the major discoveries in the eastern end of the belt were through drilling underneath copper soil anomalies. There's no calcrete in that area, therefore the copper is able to present itself to surface. So moving on here, focus on 2 regional exploration targets, the T3 Dome complex, as we call it, up the eastern end of our holdings, around about 700 square kilometres. Up until May this year, we had access to only 50 square kilometres around the T3 deposit, and we poured drilling and resources at that, and that's escalated very, very rapidly up through towards a decision to mine 5 months from now. The T20 Dome complex we're moving into, currently we're applying for extensive area for drilling approval here. There's an environmental process that we go through. And it's around about 2,000 square kilometre target area here. We're applying for an area of 700 square kilometres initially to just try and scope out the potential of what's happening down that western end of the belt heading towards Namibia. Why domes? Well, T3 really some 200 drill holes into this project here to arrive at a 60 million tonne resource. What became quite apparent, and this is quite a recent realisation, if you like, at the beginning of this year, it had a broad domal shape. So that was the first clue. Then effectively, this was followed by flying electromagnetics, which defined a large dome sitting right under T3. We didn't know that existed this time last year. So of course, since then, everything revolves around domes. So we have a thing we call the T3 Dome complex. This shows the location of some 7 or 8 domes that we've identified as a top priority for drilling. They're all down from just below the surface down about 500 metres. For geologists in the room, there's 0 outcrop in this area. You rely primarily on geophysics. Magnetics and EM work superbly. Soils, bit hit and miss. T3 was a lucky find. There was a very subtle soil anomaly. We think it was almost a tree root breaking through this calcrete sheet that responded to providing a very subtle anomaly, and that resulted in a major intersection. We have 7 domes lined up for drilling. We're having success in the very first dome at A4, and we've put out one announcement recently about a new intersection there, and we're increasing our rig count even as we speak, and there, as one would expect with so many rigs, there's more to come. The domes, again, really for geologists, but these are EM conductive domes. The reason these are cross-sections, slices through these domes, the domes range in length from about 5 to 10 kilometres long. They're spread along about 50 or 60 kilometres. The open pit you see in the top left corner is the outline of the open pit for T3, and this was the deposit, the 60 million tonne resource that sits on top of that dome. The reason for the domes is there's a conductive pyritic shale that seems to sit at the top of the mine sequence. It's become a marker. It's a shale with a little limestone association there, which we think is the source of the calcium in the overlying sheet of calcrete that overlies this whole area. Anyway, and of course we've since flown other areas, and all these other buried domes have emerged as high priority targets, and we've just commenced the whole process of drilling these out. A4 dome, getting a little bit technical here, but just showing what these things look like when you stack a whole series of EM sections together. They have a broad domal shape. They plunge off at either end. Internally, they're very complex and they just deliver copper. So far in A4, we've had a very high success rate on drilling intersections here. What we announced recently is that there are really two targets. Again, in each dome there is a high-grade stockwork system that we're targeting near the top of these domes. This is talking copper that's been trapped effectively, a bit like an oil trap here. And then we're also looking for a layer called the NPF contact, Nwakapan Formation contact. It's a geological contact about 250 metres below that. We find very strong disseminated chalcocite mineralisation. So we get lucky. If we get lucky, we get two types of deposits in one drill hole. T20 dome complex, this is 100 kilometres to the west. This is our next target that we'll be moving on to. So far relying on soils here, and zinc is, in this case, a proxy for copper. Zinc is more mobile, it presents itself a little bit better, so we're looking for subtle zinc anomalies. We have very extensive zinc anomalies here. And I should point out too, our hometown of operations is Hunzi. You can see it hopefully on that map. I don't have a pointer, I do have a pointer after all, sorry. This is our hometown of Hunzi, and it connects to Maun, and basically it's a ring road highway that runs all the way around Botswana. So substantial infrastructure already in place here. But we do anticipate commencing drilling at this dome complex in the next 2 to 3 months. As soon as that environmental approval comes through, we'll be drilling. This just to show you again, there's another of these domes, T23, but the very unusual nature of what we're dealing with here. The domes, if there's any mineralisation within these domes, then it's still there. That's the principle we're working on. They're not eroded. They're intact and buried just below surface. Okay, just a quick update on T3 project here. Discovered in March 2016. The resource has grown steadily. We announced a PFS back in January this year for a mine life initially, a 9 to 12 year open pit mine life here. We've since expanded the resource to 60 million tonnes, and we're targeting a number of decisions in terms of the scale of the processing plant, but we announced recently we're targeting a startup process plant around about 3 million tonne a year. And first production towards the end of 2020. So again, we're working very closely with the Department of Mines. They're well aware of our process and our intentions here. This mine alone will employ somewhere between 500 and 700 Botswana. So again, and Australians just providing expertise, specialist technical expertise where it's needed from lessons learned in Western Australia. So, we've got a very solid team of guys here now that in country and supported by local West Australians particularly, who have sort of been through the mining ropes and just seen how these things can evolve. The T3 pit itself, very robust project. These were the outcome of the PFS, pre-feasibility study. We're looking at C1 cash costs around about $1.22 a pound, all-in sustaining costs $1.36, IRRs 39%, payback, rapid payback 2.7 years. That's for the base case. They'll take a pit down about 220 metres in an expansion case, which will take it out to 12 years. The pit, again, just giving you an idea, cross-section through the pit, just showing the geometry and the very lucky, fortunate shape. This is a nice, big, fat, 100-metre wide copper deposit. It just had that lucky geometry that enables a very low stripping ratio, so we're looking around about 4.8 to 1. It's shallow, near surface. We can get to it quite rapidly and get into production early and start winding off the capital cost of this project. To date, we've drilled out about 590,000 tonne of copper, and we're also teasing out an underground potential as well. So our target there is around about 10 million tonnes of 2% in that range ore, and we've got a couple of drill rigs operating there now, just trying to extend this outside of the pit. Metallurgy, very similar to throughout the Botswana copper belt, is just outstanding metallurgical properties here. If you can read these numbers, we frequently get well north of 90% recoveries in copper and silver. The grades, the concentrate grades are, as I mentioned before, in the sort of 35, maybe 40 range overall. There's very low deleterious elements, so we think this will be sought after by smelters. Botswana did have a smelter industry at BCL, some of you will be aware of that. It shut maybe 18 months ago. It was old technology. There's a desire still in country to beneficiate in country. However, and we were involved in part of that steering committee, if you like, for a new smelter at an early stage. But the reality, of course, in smelting here is that you have to compete with China. At the end of the day, that's where the challenge lies for anyone heading down that path of smelting and refining copper. And a site layout for the process plant. It's a conventional flotation plant targeting 3 million tonne a year. We're very near the Hansi Highway, and Botswana Power Corporation has given us a very clear indication that grid power will be accessible to this site early 2020. So that will align closely with our development plans for this mine. Process water, we've currently got a large water survey, study, groundwater monitoring process underway now. This belt coincides with Botswana's a large area of Botswana's cattle industry. So this is premium beef country, and we're very, very mindful of the use of water and how that, and we're scrutinised very closely as to our water usage and requirements for this project. So everything is being done to the highest possible standards here. The photograph on the bottom right there is our geological team in Hansi. Wonderful team of guys here, really fantastic, and really being very successful in making this all happen. Our timeline, we're targeting end of March for the various resource projects there for T3. We're chasing the underground at T3 and another deposit, T1, and then we're really uplifting the rate of drilling on our exploration projects. We think there's much more to come. Employment, training, community, they're really key, not just words, but these are key issues that we want to become completely involved in, and we are very much in part of the Hansi community now. And so we already, even though we're still at the exploration phase and we're moving into development, we've got training programs already underway, and really trying to kind of uplift the skill set in the Hansi district, but also across by applying some specialist knowledge here from Australia. Accommodation village, we're stage one. We're building a village in stages for 400 people. There's simply not the capacity there in our hometown of Hansi. And we're through our community relations office, we're supporting and sponsoring community initiatives in Hansi. It's all driven locally out of that town, which is, as I say, is a substantial town here. And the guys on the right, the school kids there with all the boots, the soccer boots, they were all actually provided by Pay Dirt magazine here, and thanks to Dominic, wherever you are out there, but he rounded up soccer boots from a Perth soccer club that he coaches, and they ended up with these guys here, and they're just absolutely thrilled about that. So the investment case, we think we're at the beginning of a much larger story. The potential feels that that's the way we're headed geologically, and I think also in terms of the wider scale that we're trying to operate at here. It's a new type of deposit. Where EM has really been the sort of breakthrough technology. It's enabled us to target successful drilling right from the start. And I think, Botswana really is a hard place to beat in Southern Africa as a jurisdiction. So we've found support and encouragement all on every step along the way. So with that, I'd just like to conclude and finish there. Thanks.